Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2019 Coachmen Leprechaun, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the MaxxAir standard roof vent cover. Using a cover like this for your roof vent is actually going to allow you to use that roof vent how you actually want to. Without a cover, you really have to pay attention to make sure you put them vents back down when you're traveling. Can't really open them up when it's raining outside or anything like that because you get water pouring through and everything else. So having a cover on there, it's going to do a few things. If it is raining, you can keep your roof vent open, get that airflow through there, without having to worry about any water coming in. Or if, maybe you plan on coming back to your motorhome a couple days, if these things sit for a minute, they kind of get stuffy and muggy in there. Well, having this is going to allow you to open that vent up, not have to worry about it. If it starts raining or something, not really a huge deal. Another thing too is, even if it is an ice day or something like that, and you have the vents open, kind of get in a hurry when, you're trying to go home, whatever the case may be, you might forget to close these things or close the actual roof vent. Well, when you're doing 70 mile an hour down the highway, those original roof vents don't hold up very well, and chances are pretty good you'll end up damaging it. With the cover on there like that, you're able to keep them open pretty much all the time, however you want. You can keep them open when you're going down the road, when you're in storage, when it's raining out, whatever the case may be. So really convenient, a very quick solution to all those issues. Not to mention too, it's going to be really hold up well against UV. If you've had any motorhome or camper for any length of time, I'm sure you've experienced the roof covers and vents start to fade and kind of start turning that yellowish color, and they eventually start cracking and just kind of falling apart almost. This is going to protect them and extend the life of them and keep them in good working order. So the way these things are actually going to work is all sides are enclosed more or less with the exception of the back. All right, and it's going to be angled and have these louvers. That way, the air inside of the motorhome can escape outside, but, nothing's going to really be able to get in. With the louvers on there and at that angle and that rainwater's coming down, things like that, it's going to push it away from the vent and keep it on the roof and not on the inside of your motorhome. There's actually a screen in there as well, and that's going to help to prevent, bugs or leaves, dust and things like that can find its way into just about anything. So having that screen in there is going to help keep that stuff out as well. And it's also going to have more or less like a little bug screen on the inside, right? Over time, this can kind of collect debris, bugs, whatever, and you want to kind of rinse it out. You can actually remove these. Now granted, you will have to pull the cover off, the actual roof cover itself off to access this, but it's not a big deal. Couple bolts and you're done. So you can pop this thing out, rinse it off, scrub it clean, and put it back in. So definitely a nice touch that they thought about, and gives you the ability to keep things nice and fresh. Probably one of the most convenient things about this is the fact that you're not going to have to make any additional holes through your roof to mount this. So you're not increasing the chance of a leak, right? And not to mention as well, you're not going to need any special sealant, tape, anything like that to put this in place. And that's because it uses brackets that bolt to your existing roof vents metal housing. Where you bolt it through, that is post-seal, after the seal. So no way water is going to be able to find its way in there. You don't see that with all these types of covers. Some of them you have to run right through the roof, and honestly, the less holes we have in our roof, the better. Less chance of it leaking. This one's also relatively compact compared to some of the other ones. Kind of has a little more of a sleek design. It doesn't stick up so high, it isn't so bulky. And that's nice, it'll help kind of cut down a little bit on that wind noise and be a little less noticeable. With that said, the original roof vent, when you go to open it up, once you put these covers on there, you do lose a little bit of that adjustability. All right, you're not going to be able to open it up all the way. However, I would say you're going to be able to maintain about 75% of it. So you can still get it up quite a bit. And honestly, the little bit that you're losing out on isn't really a big deal considering the benefits that you're picking up by using a cover like this. Whenever you put something on the roof, one thing that comes to my mind is, you know, is it going to be tough? Is it going to hold up? And that's because stuff up here does take a beating, you know, when you're going down the highway, road debris, leaves, all the weather's hitting it constantly. And I'm actually pretty impressed with this thing. It's almost like a really thick plastic, and just pushing down on it doesn't really budge. I mean, a little bit, but a lot less than expected. So honestly, I could see this thing lasting for quite some time, you know. But of course, that goes without saying. If a big tree branch or something like that, huge storm comes through, you know, it might end up damaging it. But for the most part, I think we're covered there. Now, depending on your taste or what color your motorhome is and things like that, these are available in a few different colors. So today we have the black one installed, but it's also available in smoke, which is kind of like a grayish color, and also white. So I have a few different choices to choose from. But other than that, pretty straightforward. Nice cover that's going to get the job done. And as far as the installation goes, really not bad. I was expecting it to be a lot more difficult than what it really was. And it really not a whole lot to it. You don't need a bunch of crazy tools or anything like that. So it really shouldn't give you a whole lot of issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put it on together now. So to begin your install, first things first, you want to make sure this is going to work with your camper or your motorhome. And generally speaking, as long as you have that standard size roof vent like this, it's going to fit on there. This thing's going to work with pretty much every type of roof vent, regardless of the brand. So pretty universal, generally speaking. But what you're going to want to do is open your original vent, I'd say maybe about halfway, something like this. And then what we're able to do is set our cover over it, and we want to mark out where we want it. So what I like to do is, you know, kind of find the middle, not only from side to side, but also front to back. Make sure it looks straight. And then if we grab a pen or a marker, something like that, we can move to the sides. So you see there's some openings there. And I'm just going to take a pen, and then each one of them openings, put a mark in the dead center. And once we do all of these, we'll pull our cover off and kind of take a peek and figure out which mounting holes we're actually going to use, and that'll work best. So we'll just do kind of one corner at a time. It's all going to be set up the same. But if you look, here's our two marks that we made. I'm going to use the ones kind of more in the center, just because if you use these ones here on the outside, it puts us really close to the corners. So these ones are a little more ideal. What you're going to do is take your bracket and line it up with the mark. And then you want to hold it flat against the metal housing on our vent. And I'm just going to take a pen, kind of put a mark there. And then what I like to do as well is that line, just make an indicator there as well. That way when we put our carriage bolts in there, we can kind of get them close and not have to really make any adjustments. So I'll leave that one kind of there and do the same thing for the three remaining brackets. Now what we can do is grab our drill. They'll list the correct size bit you need in the instructions, and we need to drill through our little flanger. Kind of feel on the inside, make sure there's nothing in the way. What I like to do is kind of just go towards the top. That way we kind of get a good bite in the center of our metal flanger. So I'll just simply drill all of these out. So now what we can do is take our machine screw, and that's going to go through our bracket and through our metal housing. It's going to be a little tricky to see on this inside edge, but what you're going to do on the other side is take this flat washer, get that going. Sometimes these can be really tight, so take your time, make sure everything's lined up. You'll get it through. Then you're going to follow that up with a split lock washer. And finally, just a hex nut. You don't want to run these down all the way just yet. We just want to get this started, because what we're going to do is take our carriage bolt that goes in the lower portion of our bracket and kind of get that in place as well. So once you get a couple turns, make sure that nut's not going to fall off. You can see we can still move this around. Alright, I'm going to take the carriage bolt, put that up in there like so, and this is why I drew those lines earlier, because these line up with our original marks that we put through the vent. So you can take the carriage bolt and kind of center it with those lines, hold it in place, and then we can come back and get our hardware completely tightened down. So I like to get as much as I can by hand. And if you have a tool, something like this where you can get a Phillips bit in there, that works out well since the carriage bolt's in the way. You can get a screwdriver through there, just it's kind of cattywampus, and simply just tighten these down. And I'm going to repeat the same process for our 3 remaining corners. We're going to take our cover here, set it over the carriage bolts that we put in. Then what you're going to do on each one, take a star washer and a hex nut. What I like to do is just kind of get all of them started hand tight. That way you can still kind of adjust the vent if you need to a little bit. So we'll do that. Make sure we have it centered, and then we can come back and snug them down. You take a socket and snug these down. Now when you're tightening these down, you don't need to crank on them by any means. You just want to get them nice and snug. And those star washers are going to prevent that nut from backing out. So before you call it a day, getting your vent done, not a bad idea to come inside and just kind of work the vent. Sometimes if you have it pushed too far back, when you go to close it, it can kind of get hung up on it. But so just work it a couple times, make sure it's good to go. And once you verified that, you're all set. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the MaxxAir standard roof vent cover on our 2019 Coachmen Leprechaun Motorhome.